بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I start with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the unconditionally loving, the unconditionally compassionate. And may the best of peace and blessings be upon the final Prophet, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was sent as a mercy to all mankind. And may the best of peace and blessings be upon all other prophets as well. Dear beloved brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greetings of Islam, the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are with a new story, a new companion of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He is Sayyidina Zayd bin Thabit al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. Zayd is his name, Thabit is the name of his father, and al-Ansari tells us that he is from Al-Ansar, the Muslims of Medina, not the Muslims from Mecca. His story starts prior to the Battle of Badr, when he came together with his mother, asking Rasulullah ﷺ to go for jihad with him. And he was at that time 13 years old only. His father passed away. His mother brought him to go along with Rasulullah in the battle. Before we dive into the story, I would like to comment on an issue that is misconceived or misunderstood about Islam. And many people think or assume that Islam was spread by the sword. And definitely that is not true. Only two people says that. Only two people say that. One of them is ignorant. He doesn't have knowledge. The other one, he has knowledge, but he wants to alter the truth. Let's take, for example, the first battle, which is the Battle of Badr. Rasulullah ﷺ was commissioned, received the first revelation in Mecca. And he remained in Mecca after commission, after bi'thah, for 13 years. And Meccans, I mean particularly non-Muslims, subjugated Muslims. They intimidate them. They try to oppress anyone they can oppress. They even killed some Muslims just because of faith, just because they believe La ilaha illallah. Despite all that, for 13 years, Muslims were asking Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, let us defend ourselves. Rasulullah did not allow them because of many reasons. One of them is Islam is the message of peace and love, should be spread through peace and love. Some Muslims were killed, intimidated, oppressed. And then they migrated to Abyssinia, some of them the first time. And after 13 years, 12 to 13 years, they migrated also to Medina, and Rasulullah migrated there. They left with their shirts on their backs, literally. That's it. They left their houses, they left their properties. We have the story of Sayyidina Suhaib al-Rumi radiallahu anhu. It is a very known story. He left and they confiscated all his money before he leaves. And they wanted also to kill him before that. So they literally just left with their clothes on them. And the Meccans, again, I mean particularly non-Muslims, confiscated all that. They sold their houses, they took the money. And that was not enough for them. Muslims left Mecca, escaped for freedom of faith, but they followed them to Medina. The Battle of Badr took place around the Medina. So Meccans came from Mecca to Medina to fight them. But Allah grants victory to Muslims. What happened is that Meccans, they came again next year to revenge for their loss in Badr. 2 years later, they came again to Medina in the Battle of Al-Khandaq, the trench. And even in I call it the liberation of Mecca, Fatah Mecca, because it is really liberation. rather than conquest. So when Rasulullah went to Mecca, they had, prior to that, peace agreement for 10 years. Meccans preached the agreement. So they started. Number two, if you study well the liberation of Mecca, you find that the commands that Rasulullah says, do not fight, do not kill, avoid fighting. Literally, he is war avert. He was not after killing them. Even when they conquer Mecca and those people forced them out, forced the companions and Rasulullah out, killed some of them, fought them 3 times. They came all the way from Mecca to Medina, Badr, Uhud, and Al-Khandaq. When Rasulullah overcome them, they become now under his command. He said, اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. Go, you are free, you are pardoned. So Islam was not spread by the sword. That is really a misconception, or maybe a hype that some people are trying to spread against Islam. We come back to the story of Sayyidina Zayd radiallahu anh. His mother brought him to Rasulullah to go to the battle, and all of us, especially those who are married, we know how mothers feel. If a father, then we can say he's a father. But his mother brought him because his father passed away to Rasulullah to go with Rasulullah. And he is aware of that. He is going in a battle. Chances are big he doesn't come back. But how this happens? Because Sayyidina Zayd and his mother, both of them are true believers, true mu'min. Rasulullah ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم. None of you becomes true believer حتى يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما, until Allah and His Messenger dearer to you, both of them, than anything other than them. Yourself included, your children included, your wealth included, your health included, your poverty included, your car included. Everything other than Allah and Rasulullah shouldn't be dearer to you than Allah and Rasulullah. If that is the case, you are a believer. But not by the tongue, by reality. You check, you have 2 things to do. Something that Allah loves and something that, something else that you like. Which one you go for? Then we know the true sign of love. Sayyidina Zayd, the love to Rasulullah, his love to Rasulullah was more than his love to himself. Because how Rasulullah ﷺ risks his life, he's going to a battle, and I stay at home safe. If I love Rasulullah more, the life of Rasulullah is more important and dearer to me than my life. His mother also is a true believer. That's why the life of Rasulullah was dearer to her than the life of her own son. And especially when her husband is passed away. That means maybe if her son dies, she doesn't have another son. She has no husband. But the life of Rasulullah is dearer to her than her own son's life. That is the sign of true mu'min. Do we have this sign? And again, another sign of their true iman, Rasulullah ﷺ, when he asked Rasulullah, I want to be with you, Rasulullah looked at him, found him still young. So Rasulullah smiled at him and asked him to go back, did not allow him. Both of them, Sayyidina Zayd and his mother, went back sad. Went back sad because they couldn't practically show the proof of iman, the proof of the love to Rasulullah ﷺ. They were deprived that. But because of his sincerity, despite the fact that he was 13 years old, he was thinking, how can I be close to Rasulullah? If the issue of jihad requires age, certain age, and I didn't reach it, should I sit down and wait for it? No, he was thinking of another way. And he found that knowledge doesn't require any age. He told his mother, Mom, I find an idea. Maybe I want to attach myself to accompany Rasulullah ﷺ and be with him, learn from him. She liked the idea. She spoke to her family, and her family spoke to Rasulullah ﷺ, and they said, Ya Rasulullah, we have our son. He memorizes 17 surah of the Qur'an, and also he speaks and writes. And we have a hadith here that is narrated by Sayyidina Zayd himself, radiallahu anhu. He said, قال زيد, narrated by Imam Ahmad, قال زيد, ذهب بي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. I was taken to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فأعجب بي. He admired me. فقالوا يا رسول الله هذا غلام من بني النجار. They said, Ya Rasulullah, this is a boy from the sub-tribe of An-Najjar. You know, at that time it was a tribal society, so the tribe is the big one, and then they have sub-tribes, that means big families. So one of the sub-tribes of the Ansar in Medina was Bani Najjar, and they were relatives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. معه مما أنزل الله عليك بضعة عشرة سورة. He has, or he memorized, that which Allah revealed to you, meaning the Qur'an. بضع means it is in Arabic between 3 and 9. So between بضعة عشرة, between 13 and 19. In another place it is mentioned 17 surah of the Qur'an. So the number is not that important. فأعجب ذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So Rasulullah admired that. وقال, Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, تعلم لي, or يا زيد, Rasulullah said, يا زيد تعلم لي كتاب يهود. O Zayd, learn for me. This is important. See how Rasulullah speaks to him. Learn for me the writing of the Jews. That means the Hebrew language. Wallahi ma amanu Yahuda ala kitabi. For indeed by Allah I do not trust the Jews with my letters. قال زيد فتعلمت له كتابتهم. Zayd said, I learned for him. For Rasulullah. Rasulullah said, learn for me. And he said, I learned for him. فتعلمت له كتابتهم, their writings. ما مرت بي 15 ليلة حتى حذقته. 15 nights didn't pass 2 weeks. 15 nights didn't pass until I حذقته. حذقته means I skillfully mastered the language. 2 weeks, skillfully perfected the language. وكنت أقرأ له إذا كتبوا إليه. I used to translate to Rasulullah when they write to him. وأجيب عنه إذا كتب, and I reply on behalf of him, meaning translate the reply of Rasulullah on behalf of him to the Jews. 2 weeks, he skillfully mastered language. And then after that, also it is narrated that Rasulullah asked him to learn the Syriac language. The Syriac language is the old language of Syria, by which the old texts of Christianity or old Christian texts are preserved. So he becomes the translator, Turjuman Rasulullah, the translator of Rasulullah for the Hebrew and the Syriac, the Jews and the Christians. He was still 13 years old. Now the issue is, how come he masters a language in 2 weeks? Not a language, 2 languages. The first one, 15 nights. The other one 17. So almost 2 weeks for both of them. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. How come within 1 month you master 2 languages? Is that possible? Definitely possible. That is the hadith I narrated to you, 15 nights. It is narrated by Ahmad and it is hadith Hasan, so it is not a hadith da'if or just from the books of history that some people raise doubts about. It is a hadith. So how come this happens? Because they used to search knowledge through the right means, and now we don't search knowledge. We don't try to acquire knowledge through the right means. One of the main means, or the main means to search knowledge through, is Iman. Iman. And love is a branch of Iman. Let's take an example that happens in most of our homes. Had it happened that you were using your laptop, your handphone, your smart TV, your iPad, and a child, 5, maybe 6, 4 years old next to you, you will never intend to teach them, but after you finish, they do what you have done. This always happens. Why is that? There is love. They love this gadget. One person told me he bought a smart TV, and his son was about 6 years old. He knows the alphabets and a few words only. The father knows how to on and off the smart TV and just connect the handphone to the TV. That's it. But his son, because he watched his favorite cartoon that he loves on that smart TV, within a few days, he learns. He doesn't understand the language, English. So through the shapes, letters, words, for him are shapes. That's it. He doesn't read, doesn't understand. So he knew how to search. He knew how to go to the favorite, how to find different apps, how to put the news, how to find his cartoon, how to change the language. He masters the TV, the smart TV, within a few days without even understanding what is written there, without anyone teaching him. How come this happen? Because of love. Now, when something is important to us, even after 1, 2, 3 years, 4 years, something that happens in our life, we never forget. Why? We love it. It is important to us. It remains. And things that are not really important, we forget. So when Rasulullah said to Zayd, learn for me, and he loves Rasulullah more than he loves himself, imagine how the learning will happen, the learning process. And then he said, I learned for him. And when you are doing for Rasulullah, definitely it is for Allah. You will get extra help, extra support from Allah, facilitation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So learn for me. We need Iman, love in our knowledge. We love the knowledge, and this love is a branch of Iman. So we need Iman in our journey of seeking knowledge. This is number 1. Number 2, we need taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Qur'an, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. Have taqwa of Allah. Be a pious, righteous human being. What happens? وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. Allah teaches you. You become righteous, Allah teaches you. That's it. Become righteous, Allah teaches you. And if Allah wills to teach, do you think that Allah needs time? Time is the creation of Allah. Allah created us, Allah created time, Allah created everything. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills to teach, Allah doesn't need time. Time is created by Allah. Time is needed to Allah, not Allah needs time. So if Allah wills to teach, time is not involved. Be and it is, kun fayakun, that's it. Immediate. So Iman and Taqwa, if you have Iman and Taqwa, Iman gives you the love and taqwa, Allah becomes your teacher. And then when you have these two, the automatic byproduct of these two is barakah, blessings. When you have these two, automatically Allah will give you barakah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Qur'an, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا. If the people of the cities, meaning people in general, آمَنوا, they have iman, وَاتَّقَوْا, they have taqwa, what happens? لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. We open up for them, not barakah, one barakah, barakat, blessings, مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ, from heaven and earth. So if you have iman, taqwa and barakah, if Allah is your teacher, then imagine the knowledge you get. That's why Sayyidina Zayd radiallahu anh was able to learn, to master skillfully 2 languages in a month. And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he noticed that, he made him a scribe. Scribe means a writer, one of the companions who write the wahi, the Qur'an. When Rasulullah receives a revelation, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked some of the companions, one of them was Zayd, to write down the revelation. Because as we know, Rasulullah doesn't write nor read. So he asked Sayyidina Zayd, despite his young age, to become one of the scribes, one of the writers of the wahi. So he was translator for the Jews, translator for the Christians, and for the Muslims, record the Qur'an for them. He was about still less than 15 years old. How come this happen? This happens when you have iman and taqwa. When you are attached to the people who are attached to Allah. He attached himself to Rasulullah. Now we attach ourselves to warathatul anbiya, the ulama who are following the steps of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Otherwise, that's why we are far away. That's why we need years to learn a language. That's why within 23 years, the Arab Peninsula changed from idolatry, worshipping idols, to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And Sayyidina Zayd remained with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam departed this life, the companions of Rasulullah, they were discussing who should be the caliph after him. So there were 3 suggestions. Number 1, the caliph is from the muhajirin, the migrators, means Muslims from Mecca. Another opinion was from Al-Ansar, Muslims of Medina. And a third one was from both of them, one from Al-Ansar and one from Al-Muhajirin, because when Rasulullah sends a leader from Al-Muhajirin, for example, couples with him one of Al-Ansar. 3 suggestions, but was not agreed upon one of them. So the deal breaker came, was Sayyidina Zayd Bin Thabit radiallahu anh. He was at that time 21 years old. He said, Ya ma'ashar al-Ansar, O people of Al-Ansar, because he is from Al-Ansar also. Imagine 21 years old. Sayyidina Abu Bakr there is 61 years old. Other companions, also some of them older than that. But he speaks. He said, O people of Al-Ansar. Rasulullah was from Al-Muhajirin, the migrators. So his caliph remains from Al-Muhajirin. And we, Al-Ansar, we were the supporters and the helpers of Rasulullah. We continue to be the helpers of his caliph. And I pledge Abu Bakr, so you pledge him. And people came and pledged. He gave his opinion, people listened to him and followed him. 21 years old. The issue is not age. The issue is iman and sincerity and knowledge. That what gives human beings the honor and status. And a year later, during the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, when he was the caliph, Sayyidina Abu Bakr compiled the Qur'an, because at the time of Rasulullah, it was, different scribes. Some of them wrote on some leaves, some cloths, bones. So it was scattered. The Quran was scattered. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr wanted to compile it in one set, in one book. He chose a group of people, and their leader was Sayyidina Zayd Bin Thabit. I mentioned he is Al-Ansari because it is important in this point. Al-Ansari, as I said, from Medina. Rasulullah remained in Mecca as a prophet 13 years, then he migrated. That means the Muslims of Medina lost 13 years of revelation of the Quran, of the teachings of Rasulullah, before Rasulullah comes to them. 13 years. How come Sayyidina Zayd be one of those people, the leading figures, to record the Quran for us? Within that 10 years, he was able to compensate the 13 years. The Quran, the teachings of Rasulullah, the revelations that came from Allah, he was able to compensate the loss of 13 years. And not only compensate, become a leading figure among the companions, even among the Muslims from Mecca. That's why he was chosen to be a leading figure to compile the Quran. Imagine that he was 21, 22 years old almost. And even when at the time of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Uthman made a major compilation of the Quran. He made 7 copies. It went through a very rigid authentication process to make sure that no mistake happens. And all other copies, they were either burned or destroyed, no more there, because they want just to keep this original, and they make 7 copies and send to different countries. Sayyidina Uthman chose 4 people, 3 from Mecca and 1 from Medina. The only one from Medina was Sayyidina Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu. Why from Mecca? Because from Mecca, as I said, 13 years before that. So the people from Mecca, Abdullah bin Zubayr, Sa'id bin Al-As, wa Abdurrahman bin Al-Harith. And then 1 from Medina was Sayyidina Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu. Imagine the job he did as a translator of 2 languages, writing the Wahi, the Quran, and then compiling it during the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and then again Sayyidina Uthman. This job nowadays needs institutions and big number of staff to do that. He did it alone, and in the compilation with the help of 2 or 3 others. How come this happened? Because of the Iman, the taqwa. If Allah your teacher, imagine that. And then the barakah, the blessings from heaven and earth. When Allah opens up the barakah, the blessings, the barakat, plural. So don't ask how and why. When things are related and attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, imagine that. How come this happened? Because, as I said, of the Iman and the Taqwa. He continued like that, and he became one of the reference for the companions of Rasulullah. The companions of Rasulullah, most of them, they were ulama, scholars, but he was a very distinguished figure among them, especially in al-mawarith, in the inheritance system. During the time of Sayyidina Umar, radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Umar, one day, he was in his khutbah and he said, Man arada an yas'ala anil Qur'an, whoever wants to ask about Qur'an, فَلْيَأْتِ Zayd bin Thabit. Go to Zayd. He became the main reference for the Ummah. You want to ask about the Qur'an? Go to Sayyidina Zayd. If you want to ask about fiqh, go to Mu'adh bin Jabal. If you want to ask about money, come to me, because he was the Caliph, radiyallahu anhu. And in the previous episode, we also mentioned the story of Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas and how he came and he respected Sayyidina Zayd despite the difference between them is 8 years. Sayyidina Zayd bin Thabit, 8 years older than Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas. he stood up and he held the rein of the horse when Sayyidina Zayd wanted to mount his horse, like the slave with his master, respecting the ulama, the scholars. And Sayyidina Zayd, when he noticed that, he said, "Why are you doing this, O cousin of Rasulullah?" He said, "This is how we are taught to respect our ulama." He became one of the ulama, from a child to a distinguished scholar among the companions of Rasulullah, not among us, among the companions of Rasulullah, the best generation, the most knowledgeable people after prophets. Sayyidina Zayd said to Abdullah bin Abbas, "Show me your hand." He showed him his hand and he kissed it. He said, "Why you did that? You are my teacher." He said, "This is how we are taught to respect the family of Rasulullah." Sayyidina Abdullah bin Abbas is a cousin of Rasulullah. So this is the manners and the akhlaq of the companions of Rasulullah. When Sayyidina Zayd bin Thabit passed away, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, "Mata habrul ummah." The senior scholar of this ummah passed away today. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make Abdullah bin Abbas his successor. With that, we come to the end of the story. But before we finish the episode, I would like to mention that childhood is not only merely for eating and drinking and playing. I know children, they have and sometimes they must play, of course. Food, definitely. But any food that is halal and eatable does the job. Clothes, any clothes that are halal and nice, does the job. But even playing, children can play with anything. But the most important thing is that we need to make tarbiyah to them, to nurture them, to refine their manners, their akhlaq. Not only to make them machines to memorize. Children have to memorize. The time of memorization is the childhood time. We want them to memorize the Qur'an, the Hadith, the Sunnah of Rasulullah, other knowledge, fields of knowledge. That is the time of memorizing. But with that, we need to add to that Iman. We need them to experience Iman, to live Iman, to love Iman. The things that we need them to remain with them all their time, we should teach them at childhood age. So their love to Allah, their love to Rasulullah, their Iman, their attachedness, we attach them, we connect them to Allah and to Rasulullah. We should not leave them playing and eating and sleeping and drinking until they reach the age of 18. And then we assume that they will be okay. We leave all the negative things to go inside their minds. And when they are supposed to shoulder responsibility, we think that they can shoulder it. They won't. Simply because we did not teach them to shoulder this responsibility, how to take it during the time we are supposed to. Instead of becoming, when they become mature and become successful human being, they will become failure par excellence. They are supposed to be like Sayyidina Zayd bin Thabit, successful people par excellence. They become failure par excellence. Why? We are the reason. We did not teach them success. We did not teach them how to be a successful human being. We did not make them live and experience it. We just care about their food, their drink, how to play. And then we blame them when they are, 18 years old, because they are no more mature in that case, even though they become 20, 30, 40. We blame them, why you are not so mature. We should blame ourselves. But the problem, if parents did not receive such tarbiyah, such refinement, such nurture, how come they nurture and refine their children? How to do that? Parents and children can go together hand in hand. Better late than never. With that, we come to the end of the episode. See you inshallah in the next episode. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: من دعا إلى هدى كان له من الأجر مثل أجور من تبعه لا ينقص ذلك من أجورهم شيئا. رواه Muslim. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, said, anyone who calls to guidance will have a reward equal to the reward of those who adhere to it, without their reward being diminished in any respect. Narrated by Muslim. If you think there is guidance in this video, share it and call others to it.